Credits. Perhaps the most pointless and sometimes annoying debate that coaster enthusiasts engage in. For some of us, we really enjoy keeping account of every roller coaster we ride. Each credit is associated with a memory, and seeing that meaningless number go up is a little extra dopamine boost for every new park and new coaster we manage to visit. So what's your credit count? No, you're wrong. Whatever number you just said is so incorrect that you should be ashamed of how incorrect you are. You call yourself an enthusiast. So what's your real credit count? Let's find out together. First, we need to establish the rules of what a roller coaster is and what a credit is. According to Wikipedia, a roller coaster is a type of amusement ride employing a form of elevated railroad track that carries passengers on a train through tight turns, steep slopes, and other elements usually designed to produce a thrilling experience. This basic definition does give us some useful rules. It needs to be an amusement ride, no counting your local subway. It needs to have an elevated track, not on the ground. And it needs to run on rails, rather than in a flume or on some other sort of surface. But another key definition is found in the name, roller coaster. A roller coaster needs to coast, meaning that it needs to be powered by gravity and its own momentum, at least partially. So the monorail at SeaWorld was not a roller coaster, even though it's an amusement ride on an elevated track. So already we have a fairly basic outline of what makes up a roller coaster. To summarize, it is an amusement ride, its track is elevated, it runs on rails, it is at least partially gravity powered. Now, let's apply those rules to some real-life examples and see how we get on, shall we? This is Storm Coaster at SeaWorld. It was built by Maurer Rides, and it's their water coaster model. It's an amusement ride, check, and as you can see, the track is elevated, so that's another check. And it does run on rails, well, half the time. The other half the time it floats in a flume. Wait a second. Now, if you ask the enthusiast's Bible that is RCDB, Storm Coaster is indeed a roller coaster. Even though it's partially a flume, it has a roller coaster segment that meets all of the criteria, so great. Let's look at another example. This is Super Splash at Plopsaland Japan. It's a very similar model to Storm Coaster, also built by Maurer Rides. It's an amusement ride, check. The track is elevated, check. And like Storm Coaster, it runs on rails for part of the ride and as a flume for the rest. So, RCDB says, let's just move on and look at another example. This is Big Red Boat at Dreamworld. It's a model by Zamperla called a powered coaster, meaning instead of having a launch or a lift chain, the train has an onboard motor that runs on a specialized rail on the track. Is it an amusement ride? Yes. Is the track elevated? Yes. Does it run on rails? Yes. Is it powered by gravity? Well, like a little bit, right? Some enthusiasts would say that gravity takes over once the train crests the hill, but other enthusiasts would say that the motor is constantly running and therefore the train is constantly powered even if gravity does make it speed up a little. Oh, this is getting complicated. This is Dino Disco at Park St. Paul. It's a model by Zamperla called a disco coaster. Amusement ride? Yes. Elevated track? Yes. Runs on rails? Yes. Powered by gravity? Well, again, it depends who you ask, as this model is also constantly powered. And since the manufacturer Zamperla markets it as a flat ride and not a coaster, a lot of people don't count it at all. What's going on? Oh, okay, new rule. The manufacturer has to market it as a roller coaster. This is the beautifully named Meat Hook Coaster at Game Over Gold Coast. Amusement ride, elevated track, runs on rails, powered by gravity, marketed as a coaster. Wait, what could possibly be the problem with this one? Well, some enthusiasts would argue that this ride is more consistent with the experience of a zip line and not a roller coaster, and it shouldn't really count. Alright, god damn it. New rule. It has to feel like a roller coaster. This is Tobertronk at Natureland. It's a Vigand alpine coaster. Couldn't possibly be divisive, could it? Wrong. A lot of enthusiasts don't count mountain coasters. Some say that the ability to control your own speed makes it a separate experience from a roller coaster. Fine, understandable. New rule, you can't have any control over the speed of the train. This is the Maurer Spike model. Oh, for God's sake. As you can see, the rules about what should count as a credit is something that seemingly no one can agree on. And for every rule we manage to define, there's always an exception that comes along and makes you question whether the rule is valid in the first place. And that's not where the complications stop. This is Project Zero. I wrote it in 2023, a year after it opened at OurWorlds. But I also wrote it in 2014 in its previous home at Dreamworld. So a lot of people would say that Project Zero was not a new credit for me. But OurWorlds completely refurbished the ride, added new theming, and changed the ride experience completely by relocating it. To me, that's the equivalent of OurWorlds adding a clone of Buzzsaw at the park, which is something that a lot of the same enthusiasts would count as a new credit. Yes, the layout is identical, but the ride experience changes from park to park, they would argue. So why isn't that the case for relocations? And what about dueling and racing coasters? I don't think anyone is disputing that Battlestar Galactica at Universal Studios Singapore is two separate credits. They're two completely different roller coasters that just happen to be packaged together as a dueling coaster. The ride experience on each side is totally different. But then what about a coaster like Steeplechase at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, where the layout is totally identical across all three tracks? Is each track truly a new experience and therefore a new credit? Again, it depends who you ask. This is all getting extremely convoluted and you're probably wondering where this rant is going, but that's exactly my point. You probably looked at the title of this video and expected a huge debate about what is and isn't a coaster and what is and isn't to be considered a new credit. But that is one of my biggest pet peeves with the coaster enthusiast community, and I despise it so much every time I see it that I just had to make a video, because it doesn't matter. If you like counting your credits, that's great, but your credit count is totally unique to you, and what you choose to include or exclude should be unique to you and the reasons why you're counting. If you're an enthusiast for the mechanical side, then maybe it is important to you that relocations aren't counted because technically you're riding the same ride. But to me, I'm counting the unique roller coaster experiences I have, so there's no difference between counting a relocated coaster and counting a clone. But my rules are also wildly inconsistent. If I rode the same traveling coaster in a different fair, I wouldn't count it again, even though it was probably a totally different experience to ride it in a different location. I constantly break my own rules. I've included things that some people would definitely question, and I've excluded others that I know that some people would count. At the end of the day, it's my credit count. The only person who has to feel satisfied with what I've decided to include is me. And I get it. Disagreement and debate is all just part of the passion of being enthusiastic about something, but for Christ's sake, guys, there's no prize for having the highest credit count, and it's not cheating the system if someone decides for some reason that drop towers are credits, even though that is pretty stupid. It's not cheating the system because there is no system. Your credit count, it's made up. You made it up. It's not a real thing and it means nothing. So just go out and ride some goddamn coasters and stop making posts like this one ranting about other enthusiasts who are just going out and enjoying theme parks like everybody else. The only credit count that affects you is yours. Do whatever you want with it. I hope you enjoyed this rant about my little pet peeve in the coaster community. I'd love to hear what your most controversial inclusion or exclusion on your credit count is. Comment below and tell me why you decided that something is or isn't a coaster. I'm going to make a video with a few of mine very soon. While you're there, please click the like and subscribe buttons to help support the channel. At the time of writing, almost 90% of the people watching my videos are not subscribed, so it would really help if you gave that button a click. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.